Chapter 1: The Dragon and the Snake Rise from the Land. November 27th, 1899, Hebei. In the howling north wind, Li Dian, who was wearing a cotton-padded jacket and a melon skin hat on his head, held a ghost-headed sword in his hand, shaking his head and chanting like a maniac. The true king shows his holiness and is invulnerable. The true king shows his holiness, and he is invulnerable. The true king shows his holiness. Li Dian's cotton-padded jacket was originally blue-gray, but because he hadn't washed it for a long time, it looked completely black. There was also a greasy reflection on his chest. It was because he had accidentally eaten 3 days ago, and his mouth was full of oil. It should be said that he just didn't take the oil seriously. Because he was wearing a cotton-padded jacket, he was not very tall, and was as round as a ball. His greasy braids were swinging behind him, which was very funny, and he looked like a clown. But now that the clown is holding a ghost-headed sword, it's not funny at all. After reciting the incantation several times, he raised the sword in his hand high and shouted with red eyes, "Kill the foreign monster!" The various people behind him were holding swords, guns, and sticks, and together they followed the senior brother Li Da and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Kill the foreign monster!" The biting north wind blew by, and the banner embroidered with the 6 characters Xuanwu Yuxingjinjuan sounded loudly. Li Dian took the lead, leading his fellow juniors and disciples to shout the slogan "Invulnerability" and rush towards the church opposite. In the church 200 meters away, there were 12 soldiers led by German Corporal Schneider, 5 priests, and more than 30 Chinese parishioners. Schneider commanded 12 soldiers to line up in 2 rows at the entrance of the church and asked the priest and parishioners to prepare in the courtyard with hammers and sticks. Looking at the swarming boxers, Schneider calculated the distance between the 2 sides and encouraged his men. Schneider, who had beaten natives in Africa, didn't take it seriously. As long as 2 rows of guns are placed later, these natives will turn around and run away in fear. After the boxers crossed the cedar tree marking the 100-meter distance on the roadside, Schneider chopped down the saber in his hand and shouted, "Shoot!" After hearing the order, the 6 soldiers in the first row pulled the trigger hard, and the firing pin struck the primer, igniting the gunpowder. The projectiles shot out of the gun barrel under the influence of the expanding gas and flew towards a crowd of people on the opposite side. 8.8. These soldiers are all elites who have served in the army for many years, and their shooting accuracy is quite good. Li Dian, who was in the lead, was targeted by the fire and was shot 4 times. The bullets hit Li Dian's chest, thigh, and arm. The huge stopping effect knocked him staggering, but that was all. He felt as if someone had hammered him in the chest, thighs, and arms, and then continued to move forward while Schneider and others looked like they had seen a ghost. Although there were only 50 or 60 people on Li Dian's side, the invulnerable monster was beyond imagination. If it can be converted, it is estimated that the heads of the soldiers on the church side will be covered with a Morale 5 debuff. After the German soldiers in the back row fired their guns, the 2 sides inevitably entered the stage of hand-to-hand combat. 2 rounds of guns were placed on the 3 of them. Li Dian, who was at the front, was shot several times. His cotton-padded jacket was punched with several holes, but he still rushed over a distance of more than 100 meters like a whirlwind. He raised his big knife and struck at the head of the foreign Japanese with the fake weapon. The broadsword and the saber in Schneider's hand collided violently. With the clear sound of cutting gold and jade, the broadsword cut the general's sword in half, and then cut it off from Schneider's left shoulder. The blade broke through the muscles, chopped off the bones, and a large pool of blood jumped out from Schneider's right waist. This sword first cut off the enemy chief's weapon and then split a large living person into 2 pieces. It was really extremely powerful. Everyone in the yard behind saw this trick of chopping up a living person and couldn't help but be stunned. The dozens of parishioners held their breath and looked at each other, then suddenly shouted in unison and dispersed in all directions amidst the exclamations of "Oh God" from several priests. Then, flames ignited in the church and soon engulfed the entire building. It was the end of 1899 AD, and China, which was already in chaos, was slipping into even more chaos. Zhao Sanduo, Zhu Hongdeng, Jing Tingbin, and other popular boxer leaders began to embark on the path of rebellion or being rebelled. Yuan Shikai also shined on the stage of history with his severe suppression of the boxers. In endless time and space, the same scene plays out again, but this time will be a little different. Speaking of the general trend of the world, if we divide for a long time, we will unite, and if we unite for a long time, we will divide. Chun Chung was shaking his head and talking eloquently to the general audience in the audience. 8. Everyone in the audience held their breath and stretched their necks to listen with interest. Suddenly, an exclamation came out. The senior brothers from the Black Tiger altar are here. Chun Chung was getting excited when he heard someone interrupting. He was not angry. He picked up the dark and heavy wood and slapped it on the 8 immortals table, and then said, "Let's talk about this today. Everyone should disperse." One of the people in the crowd said, "What are you doing? The senior brothers in the Black Tiger Temple are also." The voice of the next few words gradually became quieter, but others covered their mouths. The leader of the Black Tigers who came over was a fat black man with a big knife on his waist. Hearing the words in the crowd, he stopped and pointed his halberd in the direction of the source of the sound and said angrily, "Which thief is making noise over there?" No one in the crowd spoke, and they dispersed in 2s and 3s. Seeing this fat black man ran up to Chun Chung, lowered his eyebrows, and said, "Elder brother." It turns out that this storyteller is the senior brother of the recently emerged Black Tiger Circle, and his status is still above this fat black man. Hearing this, he asked lazily while packing up the things in the dojo, "Big Eyes, you have driven away all the villagers as soon as you came. Can you treat me to dinner later?" He jumped his feet with Big Eyes and said, "Elder brother, why are you still thinking about eating? The altar leaders from all the altars within 100 miles have arrived at Laojun Temple, and they're about to discuss how to choose the leader. The altar wants me." When Chun Chung heard this, he immediately threw away the thing in his hand and ran towards Laojun Temple. The Big Eyes at the back stamped their feet and yelled at the stupid junior brothers next to them. "What are you looking at? Why don't you hurry up and follow?" When a few people arrived at Laojun Temple, they saw a large banner of instant noodles erected outside the otherwise deserted small temple. On it were written a bunch of words such as Great Sage Qitian, Pure Altar Envoy, Guangyuan Jinjuan, Puhua Jinjuan, and the like. Hundreds of strong muscular men from Yen and Zhao were bragging. One said that his brothers were profound in Taoism, and the other said that his masters were superb in martial arts. After Chun Chung and Li Dian explained to everyone under their own Black Tiger banner, they quietly slipped in through the back door of Laojun Temple. Laojun Temple is a temple at the end of Fantai Village. It covers an area of only 2 or 3 acres. Excluding the courtyard and backyard outside, the building area is not large. The front hall is only about 40 square meters. Now, there are 20 or 30 people crowded in the front hall, and a large space is left for the person in the middle. The other people are crowded. The 2 of them finally managed to squeeze in front of their own altar leader, but they didn't even have time to apologize. He saw a pair of big eyes glaring at him. Then I saw a girl of 13 or 14 angrily yelling at the 2 of them. "What are you doing?" Although the sound is clear and pleasant, it is just like what Bai Letian, a poet of the previous generation, said, "Big beads and small beads falling on a jade plate." However, most of the people in this temple were rough and tumble warriors, and they didn't care about such a girl's delicate voice. The thin old man who was talking loudly said angrily, "Who is interrupting?" Then he saw Li Dian next to the girl and said in a weird voice, "Hey, isn't this our former true Lord Xuanwu, now the second senior brother of Black Tiger Tan?" Everyone in the temple was originally surprised that the little girl had a good place in the temple. After hearing what the old man said, they couldn't help but whisper to each other. So this is the holy aunt and senior sister of the Black Tiger altar. Lita saw what a brave man he was. Now what? Maybe people like this tune? Li Big Eyes, a fat and dark man, blushed. He was so embarrassed by everyone's remarks that he wanted to tell the difference, but he couldn't talk so much. When he was angry, he would pull out his knife and chop these guys who dared to talk nonsense into 7 or 8 pieces. When they saw him, they were about to use the knife. Knowing his bravery, everyone retreated from the gate with a bang. The thin old man also followed the crowd and retreated, and then yelled at the door. "You Li Dian, you actually dare to use a knife in front of a big guy. Do you want to bully your master and destroy your ancestors?" Li Dian jumped out with a knife and cursed. "You thieves! You're just cowards who spit shit in your mouth and have no balls in your crotch. If you have the guts, come and fight your grandpa for 300 rounds. Is this a fight on the bed? Someone in the crowd said this. After hearing this, Li Dian's face became even more angry. He held the knife in both hands and was about to ask God to get up. The girl next to him yelled, "Get back." After hearing the order from his altar leader, the fat black man was like a deflated rubber ball. He slumped and retreated to the back to stand with his senior brother. At this time, the disciples outside heard that something had happened inside, and they rushed into the courtyard one after another, looking for their senior brothers and masters in a mess. The thin old man looked at the mess on his side, and then at the black tiger banner opposite where there were only a dozen people, but they were arranged in 3 rows in an orderly manner. He was secretly frightened, but he made up his mind not to continue wading in the muddy water. Facing 300 to 400 men, the girl stood there calmly, cooperating with the dozen or so disciples forming a line behind her, showing a sense of freedom and majesty. Gradually, everyone's voices became quieter, their eyes widened, and various thoughts were running through their minds, but they thought it would be better to let others take the lead and see which way the wind blows. Just as the big eyes on both sides were staring at each other, someone jumped out. Everyone else breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, "Finally, a fool has come out." The person who jumped out was Wang Er, the altar owner of the Baishuotin of the Shaoyang Village Didao Association in the West. He wielded a broadsword weighing 7,749 kilograms and practiced the Golden Bell Shield of the Didao Association. It was said that he could kill galloping horses and be invulnerable to weapons and bullets. I saw Wang Er standing in the field, holding a knife and flour, and then said loudly, "If it were Li Dian, everyone would be convinced. But now he is no longer able to do it, so he has given up his position to you, a little kid. Seeing that you are so young, you don't seem to be able to keep the Black Tiger altar family business. Why don't you let the senior brothers select a highly respected person to help you and help you take care of the Black Tiger altar's affairs?" "Oh, is this highly respected person yours?" the girl asked calmly with a twinkle in her eye. Wang Er bent his left arm upward, revealing his strong and plump muscles, and said carelessly, "Senior brother, of course I can help you reluctantly, but as for you..." Wang Er looked at the girl's small body up and down. A grin broke out on his face and continued, "As for you, you can stay and learn how to do things from your senior brother." Everyone behind Wang Er heard the words and whispered among themselves. The noise echoed in the courtyard for a while, making Wang Er unable to hear what the girl opposite said. Wang Er said loudly, "What were you talking about just now? Do you think my proposal is a good one?" "What I said is..." The girl stretched out the index finger of her right hand and pointed to the sky. The clear voice rang clearly in everyone's ears. "I have seen it. Your Death Star is shining. XH.218.24.13. Chapter 2 Dragon and Snake Rising 2. Chapter 2 Dragon and Snake Rise 62. I've seen it. Your Death Star is shining. After hearing this, everyone couldn't help but look up to the sky. This is a bright and clear world in broad daylight. Wang Er withdrew his gaze to the sky, looked left and right, and said viciously to the girl in front of him, "Since you don't know how to show appreciation, don't blame me for being rude." Wang Er had a very good plan in mind. He would first use his words to overwhelm this little girl, and then seize the Black Tiger Temple's territory. I heard that these guys have been selling a lot of ironware and private salt recently. 3 moves. The girl interrupted Wang Er's beautiful reverie. "What? I'll give you 3 moves." The girl's clear eyes were full of light, and her sleeves were calm and automatic. Although he was just a small figure standing there, with only a dozen people behind him, he seemed to be a commander-in-chief surrounded by hundreds of attendants and thousands of troops, and there was a faint sound of fighting and drums. Didn't you just say that you want to choose a big leader? I don't think you need to find anyone with high morals and respect. You boxing, Red Lantern Club, Broadsword Club, and the White Lotus sect that has been spreading secretly all respect the strong. Today you use the sword, and I am empty-handed. As long as you can defeat me, the Black Tiger Altars industry will directly belong to you. If you lose, all the territory you have here will belong to me. 8 Yen 8C. Wang Er glanced at Li Dian and others standing silently, and then at the girl in front of him. Even though he was always rude, he felt that something was wrong. However, being conceited and brave, he decided to deal with the situation in his best way, which was to chop the little girl into pieces with a knife in his hand. Who? Wang Er let out a low roar, and with a whirring sound of wind, Wang Er wanted to cut off the girl's head. Even if you don't feel that the person in front of you is much of a threat, this casual blow can cut the wind. The broadsword slashed down like a mountain, and everyone's eyes flashed as they saw the girl standing on the back of the sword at some point. What Wang Er used was a fine product from the Authentic Sword Club, weighing 79 pounds. Ordinary people cannot use it as a weapon at all. Only those with divine power or profound Taoism like Wang Er can wield it. Now the enemy actually jumped on top of his beloved weapon. Even with his physical strength, he couldn't control the sword falling to the ground. The first move. The girl, who was as light as a swallow, stuck one foot on the back of the knife. Feeling that he had lost all face, Wang Er angrily shook the sword in his hand, turned the blade upside down, and rushed towards the daughter, like a tiger descending from the mountain. However, the light of the knife flashed, and the fierce knife was still slashing in the air. Now the two people exchanged positions, with Wang Er facing away from the temple entrance, and the girl facing directly. What should I do? Wang Er can use his not very bright mind to figure out that he can't hit the person in front of him at all, so what should he do? It seems that none of the door-breaking knives he has learned are easy to use. Hey, Wang Er, didn't you just say that Li Dian was dying and now you're not dying either? Some people in the crowd, who usually competed with Dedao for territory, were quite nasty and booed, causing others to laugh. Bar. Wang Er's face was blue and white. This worldly reward came a little too fast. The second move. The girl reported the second number unmoved by the noise around her. Oomph, Wang Er said angrily. You are just agile. If you have the guts, just stand there and take a blow for me. The jeers in the crowd became louder, but Wang Er was complacent. Yes, why did I suddenly think of this idea? It's really good. No wonder this little girl was empty-handed. It turned out that she had made up her mind to be faster than herself. Thinking about it, as long as the other party doesn't dare to pick up the conversation, I can find someone myself. Good. What? Wang Er thought he heard wrongly and was confused. I said, the girl said, taking a fighting stance, I will just stand here and not move. Now you only have one move left. Before you die, use your strongest blow. Don't let the King of Hell tell you that you still have a trick to use. It would be an unjust death. As soon as such a domineering declaration was made, the surroundings became quiet again. The only sounds left were the heartbeats of everyone and Wang Er's increasingly heavy breathing. With the sound of Zila, Wang Er tore off his cloth clothes and roared to the sky. At some point, his eyes had turned red. The great immortal shows his age. Help me with his power, he shouted with a slogan, and his body became thicker again. Not sure whether it was a suggestion in his mind or whether he was really possessed by some kind of Maoshan, Wang Er felt that he was very good and powerful now. Seemingly endless power surged out of his limbs, allowing him to regain his arrogance after being ridiculed. Kojia. Wang Er, who looked more like a beast than a human, made a strange noise of unknown meaning from his mouth. Saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth. A ferocious and violent breath came out of him, causing a burst of exclamations from the crowd. Then he struck the head with the same move, but the power is more than doubled compared to the first move. It's just that it's also completely useless. The huge beast tried its best, but could not pull out the big knife from the white and tender hands on the opposite side. Wang Er woke up with his body trembling slightly, but maybe it was better for him not to be sober. The fact before him that was beyond his imagination made his mind go blank. There was a burst of force in the palm, and the 49-pound sword shattered with a cluck sound. The girl lowered her head and looked at the shallow ravine her feet had plowed on the ground, then raised her head and looked at the opposite side, with a smile on her lips and said, "Yes, this move is your strongest blow. I think you will die without regrets. It's your turn now." He lowered his waist and made a hand gesture. Wait. Wang Er threw down the weapon with only the hilt left and said hurriedly, "Actually, my strongest skill is not the sword skills, but the hard work of body protection. Take my move." Like a long whale sucking water, vitality gathered in the girl's right palm. "No, I mean let's not fight. Sit down and talk slowly." Wang Er could not speak clearly and was at a loss. Just palm wave. The voice was slightly distorted by the sudden strong wind, but it still conveyed its owner's high-spirited and consistent will. "Asshole. Don't talk to yourself. Ah. In a moment of shrill screams, the human body turned into powder. A powerful and fierce blow shattered everything in its path, and then dissipated in the vast sky. The strong wind also stopped abruptly with the end of this move, leaving only a large hole 3 meters in diameter that penetrated the front and back of Laojun Temple. Now, the girl turned around and said calmly, "I am the big boss. Who is in favor and who is against?" Chapter 3: The Dragon and the Snake Rises 3. Chapter 3: Dragon and Snake Rise 63. What is happening in China today can be described as bizarre and bizarre. 8. The governors in the south are playing with my territory, and I have the final say, while at the same time watching with cold eyes the various monsters and monsters in the land in the north, as well as the countless ferocious people in troubled times who smoke clouds and make trouble. For Chen Sheng, who was only 20 miles away from Handan, his only purpose was to serve the girl named Lin Mengqiu, who was sitting high in the lobby. Lin Mengqiu, the title Black Tiger, is too low-level. Please think of one that is noble, majestic, and domineering. Chen Sheng. If you don't like Black Tiger, how about calling it Black Dragon? Replace the tiger with a dragon? Lin Mengqiu thought for a while and nodded in approval. Then our hall will be called the Black Dragon Society from now on. Chen Sheng became entangled in his heart. The expression on his face was as if he had eaten too much mustard. After a long time, he breathed a sigh of relief and praised, "It's really a good name." Lin Mengqiu was also very satisfied and then said to his first subordinate, "Very good. From now on, I will be the Black Dragon King of the Black Dragon Association. From now on, you will all call me Lord Black Dragon King." The Black Dragon King seems to have gone astray, and he sounds like the boss villain in the 00 novel 00XS. CC. However, Chen Sheng could only bow to the ground and shouted, "Yes, Lord Black Dragon King." Then, he raised his head and asked cautiously, "Lord Black Dragon King, you said before that you would be the leader of these 10 miles and 8 villages. Now this 100 miles around is my Black Tiger, the head of the Black Dragon Association. What are we going to do next?" "Of course." The girl paused and then replied loudly, "Of course it's a big deal. If someone you know very well suddenly says to you, 'Let's go do something big,' what would you think?" Chen Sheng didn't know what others would think. He only knew that he had a headache now. 8. But for some reason, he had to bite the bullet while saying, "Haha, it's good to have a big job, but I don't know how big you want to do it." Lin Mengqiu made a face at the boy, took out a folded linen cloth from under the table, and slapped it on the table with a bang sound. Chen Sheng's eyelids jumped when he saw this thing. He probably guessed what it was. Sure enough, After Lin Mengchu unfolded the folded square linen cloth, he saw many lines of different lengths, mixed with reality and reality, drawn with ink on it. If you look carefully, you can see the coastline and islands in the lower right corner. That chain of islands is obviously the Japanese archipelago. On the left are Taiwan, Hainan, Luzon. Obviously, this is a somewhat freehand map, but only those in China and areas surrounding China, including but not limited to India, Vietnam, North Korea, Russia, Japan, etc. After laying out the map, which she probably drew in an unknown corner on the table, the girl pointed at the center of the map with her white fingers and said proudly, "Look, our location is probably right here, with Shaanxi to the north and Hunan to the south. You see, this is Handan, Songding, and Tangshan. This is Qinhuangdao, Dalian." After naming more than a dozen places on the map, the girl straightened up, opened her eyes wide, and asked, "Don't you have any ideas after looking at these places?" "Well," the young man thought thoughtfully. After thinking for a while, he pretended to be confused and said, "These are all place names, but I am very familiar with Beidea. Didn't we go to the beach there last time?" "Huh." The girl wrinkled her nose. This action was not annoying to her, but had a cute flavor in it. Think about it carefully. Your dead geography teacher must have told you that these places are rich in coal and iron resources. If you say that, my geography teacher must be dead. Well, even if a lot of coal and iron ore can be mined from these places, what does it matter? Humph! The girl slapped the table, causing the whole room to rustle. 8. Chun Chung thought silently. Okay, it's time to change tables later. Lin Mengchu said happily. In this era, coal is the food and steel is the skeleton. If you add the railway as the blood vessel, this is the foundation of the king. First of all, the young man pointed out the flaw in Lin Mengchu's words calmly. It is easy to get sick just by eating food. Secondly, those with only bones and blood vessels are specimens. Secondly, my current body is only 14 years old, and yours is only 12 years old. Even if people in the feudal era matured earlier, no one would believe that this one is 14 and the other 12 wants to create a king's industry. Why don't you believe it? The girl asked back. Du Fue went rampant across the Yangtze River and Huaihe River at the age of 14, and Li Shimin, who was of the same generation as him, also became famous at the age of 14. Don't tell me that we can't compare to them. It doesn't matter if others don't believe it. I only need you to believe it, that's enough. Do you believe me? Do you believe me? Faced with this question from Lin Mengchu, he could definitely give the answer without hesitation. Of course, I believe you. Chun Chung smiled, habitually facing the girl. Isn't this the end? Lin Mengchu said confidently. We can definitely accomplish our goal of conquering the world by joining forces. Wait! The boy who conquered the world wondered if there was something wrong with his ears and said hurriedly, "Didn't you just say that you wanted to do something big? Why did you suddenly change your goal to conquer the world?" The girl turned her gaze to other places, raised her head, and reprimanded. "Haven't you heard of this saying? The best in the Dharma is to get it. Of course, we must aim high. In this way, even if we fail to achieve the predetermined goal, we can still achieve the next level goal. The lowest goal is to conquer China, and a little higher is East Asia, and even higher is the entire Asia plus the first island chain, and the ultimate goal is to conquer the world." If special effects could be added, Chun Chung thought silently. At this moment, Chu Chu must have been ignited with raging flames, and maybe the sun was rising behind her, and the sunlight was just shining down to highlight the domineering aura of the protagonist. However, he has also played games such as Three Kingdoms and Hearts of Iron, and he can understand the feeling of having the entire world in the palm of your hand, playing with it at will, and then changing the world. Come to think of it, Chu Chu must have been a game fan like him. If there is any difference, it is that he is playing the strategic version of Three Kingdoms, while the girl is playing the version of Dynasty Warriors, which is a one horse for 1,000 game, and